Hello, Dr. Peterson. Welcome to the Hidden Center, where we wrestle with monsters, lions, and men. I'm Dennis Damone, a lover of wisdom, words, and wonders. And insofar as I am those things, I have you to thank to a large degree. I first encountered you back in the early days when you were standing up to some of the tyrannical propositions being put forward by the Canadian government. I so admired your courage, though since then I've learned that you don't like calling yourself courageous. You prefer to say that you know what to be afraid of. You have taught me, and so many of my generation, what to fear. To fear telling a lie. To fear not standing up with our shoulders back, not imitating the noble lobster. It's hard for me to put into words just how grateful I am for your witness to truth. And yet, that witness is complicated. As you like to say, words are, it's a, what's the phrase? It's not that simple. Sorry, I don't mean to imitate you. I'm not trying to mock you. It's just your voice is so in my head that whenever I try to quote you, I start speaking the way you talk. Your words are in my head, and they're in the heads of so many people. And you're honest about what you don't know. And you're not sure, you've said, what truth is. You suspect, and you talked a lot more about the pragmatists early on, that truth is what works, that truth is somehow related to that which is good. I couldn't agree more. I don't know if you've heard much about D.C. Schindler. I know that Vervaeke has told you about his work. I'm a huge fan of him as a philosopher, and he makes the case that the good, following Plato, is the cause of knowledge, truth, and reality. So there is some deep connection between what is good and what is true. If you miss that, I think you're blind, and you would have to be blind because, as you've pointed out, the very way that our eyes work, they seek out something that is relevant, that is good for us. They're tool-seeking first, not objective, scientific image-seeking first. I grant all that. But I also wonder, what kind of good is it that truth is related to? There are classically three different kinds of goods. There are pleasant goods, useful goods, and what are called noble or virtuous goods. Pleasant goods aren't really transcendent. You've spoken a lot about a simple hedonism is not sufficient at all for the suffering of life. You've also said that happiness, if we mean by happiness mere pleasure, cannot be the goal of life. And I couldn't agree more. So if truth is going to be something real, it can't be merely that which is pleasant. Okay, we agree, I think. Second kind of good is the useful good. Useful goods still don't transcend me. They're still relative to me. A tool is useful if it's useful for me. It doesn't directly put me in contact with a transcendent reality. And I want to be careful here because if you and I were sitting here talking, and I hope that someday you might join me in the studio and we could chat about this in person, you would point out to me, I think, that tools they do put us in contact with a transcendent reality insofar as they only work if they're adequate to reality. So this is the evolutionary metaphor. In the same way that an animal will only survive if it works, if it does its function in its niche, a tool will only work if it is adequate to the reality that we describe, that we encounter. But there is a problem because tools are still relative to my goals, and my goals aren't always the best. This is something that you've talked about extensively. If something goes wrong in your life, one of the first questions you should ask is, am I aiming up? Am I aiming at the highest possible good? And tools, useful goods, simply aren't the most useful good. not the most useful good, the greatest good. They aren't the greatest good. The kingdom of heaven is not made by tools. Okay, so there's a third kind of good, a transcendent good, the good of the kingdom of heaven, the good of the highest possible good, a good that transcends any individual person, any individual community, a good greater than nations, a good greater than history, a good greater, I think, than the material world itself. For what does a man gain if he gains the whole world but loses his soul? So there's some good that our soul is in contact with that's greater than pleasure, greater than useful goods, greater than tools. It's hard to describe, but I think you do a pretty good job of saying that this is the good that is worth giving your life to. It's the greatest possible good, the kingdom of heaven, as it were. Okay, so my question for you then is, which good is truth in relationship to? When you say truth is that which works, do you mean truth is that which is pleasant? Do you mean truth is that which is useful? Or do you mean that truth is that which puts us in contact with the greatest possible good, with the kingdom of heaven? I think that your message, the truths you try to impart, might have greater purchase on people's hearts, might convince a few more of your intellectual enemies, if you made it clear which good, what kind of good, truth is. I hope someday that you and I can discuss this and many other wonderful things. God bless Dr. Jordan Peterson. Thank you for all that you've done.